Sass, and in today's episode, we are going to continue from where we left things off in the previous episode. Obviously, in the last episode, we were able to send photo messages into a channel and to be able to display those photo messages in our chat room screen, which is great. However, there is a couple of miscellaneous bugs that we need to fix to make sure that functionality is working as expected. One of the first things that we need to handle is, for example, when we send messages in the completed version of the project, as you can see, we clear out our media attachment preview when we send a photo message or sets of photo messages. And in this current version of our project, that is obviously not the case. When we try to send a photo message, we're not clearing our media attachment preview. So let us demo that really quickly. As you can see, when we send a message, we do not clear the photo attachment preview. And also, I would like for us to scroll to the bottom when we are done sending the messages and, of course, handle a couple of other things. So I'm going to jump to our to-do list and show you what we're going to be focusing on for this episode. And the first thing is we want to clear the media attachment preview and also dismiss the keyboard, because you can imagine if you're using a physical device, the minute you hit a send button, it should clear that media attachment and dismiss your keyboard for you. The second thing is I would like for us to dynamically size our photo messages. So in the completed version of the project right here in the simulator, if we go into a chat room screen, as you can see, the messages have different heights, right? So we're going to be focusing on that as well. And then the other bit is scrolling to the bottom once we've successfully sent a photo messages and fixing this chat room screen content insets. And I'll show you what that means really quickly. So in the current version of the project, as you can see, the photo message has a pretty bad insets, and we are going to rectify that. So let us get right to business. Let us start off with this, clearing media attachment preview. And so I'm going to jump into our chat room view model. I'm going to open in a new tab. You should be familiar with that by now. And the first thing we need to do is when we're done sending a photo message, or honestly, the minute we hit the send button on a photo message right up here in this send message method, I would like for us to clear out this media attachment preview. So what do I mean by that? I would like for us to have something like media attachments. We need to remove all these components. And of course, because media attachments is bounded to our photo picker, we need to remove that as well. And let's see, we also need to clear our text message and nil it or default it to an empty string. Okay, so with that being done, that should handle the first part of our equation, which is, to be able to clear the media attachments. The other bit is when we're done hitting the send button for this multiple media messages, I would like for us to dismiss the keyboard. And so for us to do that, we would need to create an extension on UI application. And I'll show you what I mean really quickly. This is sort of the UI kit way of clearing or dismissing keyboards. So I'm going to go to our extension folder. I am going to create a new file, and this is going to be on the UI application object. So I'm going to say UI application plus extensions, create a new file. And like I said, we're going to extend our UI application, okay? And we're going to create a static method on it that's going to help us dismiss our keyboard. So I'm going to say dismiss keyboard. And we're just going to say UI application dot shared. What else do we need? Send action. It's going to ask for the selector. I'm just going to say pound selector. And we need the UI application dot resign first responder. Resign first responder. Am I doing this right? Selector, yes, resign first responder. Okay. And to is going to be nil. From is going to be nil. Honestly, everything else is going to be nil. We just wanted to dismiss the keyboard. So we probably need to import UI kit. And I think we are good to go. So now let's jump back to our chat room view model and use this dismiss keyboard method. So again, the minute we hit the send button, we're removing the media attachments and we're clearing the text and dismissing the keyboard. So we're just going to say UI application dot dismiss keyboard, right? This is perfect. And honestly, I would like for us to create some sort of a method for this that helps us, clear this input area. So I'm just going to create another method down here. I'm going to call it clear text input area, because that's really what this is. And what are we going to do? We're going to copy this removal and the keyboard dismisser in there, and then we're going to call that clear text input area method. So let us run our application on the simulator, and we are pretty much done with the first part of our episode and our agenda for the day. So let us jump into the chat room and let us try to send a new photo message, right? So let us select, for example, this one of Master Yoda, and let us try this one of Obi-Wan Kenobi looking like a Chad. And let's hit that send button. Look at that. We dismiss our media attachment preview, and look at that. We are uploading our photo messages. So that is awesome. The first bit of our agenda for the day is done. The second bit is the dynamically sizing of image aspect. So as you can see, the images have a fixed height, and as I've shown in the completed version of the project, we actually have a dynamic height. So we're going to fix that by going to our bubble image view. So if you jump into the bubble image view components, which is inside of your chats underneath the views folder, I am going to expand Xcode all the way, and let us see. The first thing that I really want to do is I want to change this size to some sort of a dynamic image size. Because remember, we are actually storing the thumbnail width and thumbnail heights for each photo message that we sent. We did that in the previous episode. So let's go right ahead and use those thumbnail heights and width to actually dynamically size our image heights. And the first bit I would like for us to do is, let us leave this bubble image view. We're going to come back to it. Let's actually go into our message item. So inside, I'm going to close the out folder. Inside of our models, let's open our message item. So what do we need to do inside of our message item? First thing, we need to create some sort of an image size. Let's create a computer property that's going to allow us to know what the image size is. And I'm going to say image size is going to be of type CG float, actually CG size, right? Call graphic size. And what is image size going to be doing? How do we get the image size? Well, we're going to get it from the, let's just say photo width is going to be equals to our thumbnail. Photo width is going to be equals to our thumbnail heights. Do we not have a thumbnail heights property here? We do not. So this is perfect. We need to add these thumbnail properties into our message item, because as you remember in the previous episode, if we jump to our message service, I'm just going to do Command Shift and O. I'm going to search for message service just to show you what I mean. Inside of our message service, look at this. Whenever we send a photo message, we are actually storing this, thumbnail height and thumbnail width properties. So let's go back to our message item and let us add those properties to our struct, because they already exist in our backend. So let's go right ahead and create a thumbnail height, right? And thumbnail height is just going to be CG floats. But remember, it's optional, because not every message item is going to have a thumbnail height, because not every message is a photo message. And same thing for the width. Thumbnail width is also going to be a CG float, which is also optional. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let us go right ahead and actually handle our key value pairing. So right here, where we're initializing this custom initializer right here, we're going to say self, the thumbnail width is going to be dictionary. We know the key thumbnail width already exists because we're using it. And we're going to say it's of type CG floats, optional. And we're going to nil coalesce it to 0. And we're going to do the same thing for the height. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it, thumbnail height, okay? Access that thumbnail height, and we are good to go. So now let's go back to our computer property and go right ahead and calculate our image size. So we know our photo width is our thumbnail width, else we're going to nil coalesce it to 0. Or let's just nil coalesce it to 500, something like that. And we're also going to say our photo height. Actually, why am I doing 500? I think let's leave it to 0 for now. We default it to 0. And let's say thumbnail, it's thumbnail height, right? We nil coalesce it to 0. So now we know that our image height is going to be what? Well, we're going to return CG size. We're going to create a new CG size. We're going to say CG size. And CG size has a width and height parameter, but I will create the actual image size or image height here. I'm going to create a new image height, and this is going to be calculated to give us a good aspect ratio for our images. So I'm going to say CG float, right? I'm going to say the photo height, right, divided by photo width. Let's see, yeah, photo width times. So what I want to do here is, let's see. What I'm trying to do here is I want the image height to be dynamically sized. Let me show you what I'm trying to do in the completed version of the project. As you can see, this image width is actually static. And the image width is static because we're using the screen size, our UI screen size. We're saying, okay, we know the screen size is from here to here. I want to take just about half or just slightly more than half of the screen width. So maybe something like 1.5 of the screen width. And I want the height to be dynamically sized. So for us to do that, we need some sort of an image width or a screen width. Let me put it that way, a screen width parameter. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create a screen width, or you could call it image width, because it's related to the image. It's not necessarily like the entire screen. I'm going to say screen width is of type CG floats. It's a computer property as well. And the way I would like to do it is, again, I want to do something like UI screen the width, the entire width of our screen. I want to divide that by 1.5, okay? Because if you look at the simulator, again, we're not taking the entire screen. Of course, the width of the image or the photo is not the entire width of the screen. However, it's not even half of it. It's about 1.5 of it. So we're going to divide, I want to be able to divide the screen width by 1.5. That's what this image width is. And in order for us to do that, we actually need to create an extension on the UI window scene. So let us go back to our extension folder and create another extension that is going to help us do this. And let's see, this is going to be pretty straightforward. It contains a couple of computer properties, but let's go right ahead and do that. We're going to say new file. We're going to do Swift file. We're going to say UI, let's see, UI window scene plus extensions, create. And I'm going to import UI kit. Can't remember if that's on foundation. So let's say extension, UI window scene, And what is this UI window scene going to do? Well, I want to get access to a couple of things. So the screen height, the height of our entire screen, the height of our entire width, our screen width. And I think that's really all that I need, the screen width and the screen height perhaps. So I'm going to go right ahead first and foremost and create access to the current window. So I'm going to say static var current window scene is going to be of type UI window scene, okay? And it's optional. And the way I'm going to get that is I'm going to get it from the UI application object. The UI application object is a singleton and it has a connected scenes property. And from there, we're going to just get the first, right? We're going to loop the first item from there that is actually a UI window scene. So I'm going to say $sign is UI window scene. And we know it's of type UI window. So let's typecast it to UI window scene. Okay, so this gives us the current window screen, right? The next thing I want us to do is to get the actual screen height. So I'm going to say screen height is going to be of type CG floats, and it's just going to return UI screen the main, the bounds. Actually, wait a minute. Do I even need? I could have just done UI screen the main, the bounds, the width. Okay. Do I need to get access to the current version? I do not. So I think I just went on a little bit of a ramble there. Actually, I could have just accessed it from the UI screen main, the bounds, the width. I thought this was deprecated actually. Wow, never mind. So let's go right ahead and create one for the width as well, the screen width. So that is the screen width, and this is the screen height. So this is going to be height. Okay, so now that we have those, let us jump back to our project inside of our message item, and inside of our message item for the image width, we're just going to say, let's see. For the image width, we want to do something like, I'm going to say left width is equals to UI window scene, the current dot screen width. Okay, and I want to default that to 0 because that current is optional. So I'm going to nil coalesce this to 0, and then I'm going to divide it by 1.5. Okay, then I'm going to return this as the width of our image. So I could just call it photo width. That's the total width. This is the static width that we were talking about the other time that we see in the simulator. As you can see, they always fill the same width. Okay, and this is going to give us a nice aspect ratio like this, which is a scale aspect fit. So that's perfect. Now we're going to go back up here and use this image width computer property right here inside of our image size. So what do we need to do in our image size? Well, we want to calculate the photo width, which is just the thumbnail width times the image width. Okay, so now we're going to say the width is just what? It's just going to be our image width. That's going to be the width of this image size. And the height is going to be the image height that we just created right here. Okay, so now let's go right ahead and use this image size inside of our bubble image view. I hope this was sort of like pretty straightforward. It's not a really complicated code. All we're really just trying to do is use the screen dimensions to calculate how tall each of our photo message should be. That's really all that's going on. And it's basic rudimentary math. We're just trying to make sure that we're getting the right aspect ratio. So let's jump back to our bubble image view and actually go back and use that image size computer property. So the first thing I want us to do, of course, is this frame right here. As you can see, the frame is using a fixed width and height. Let's go right ahead and change that now to the image size. So I'm going to say item dot image size dot width. Okay. And then for the height, I'm going to say item dot image size dot height. Okay, and what else do we need to do? So the next step of the equation is I would also like to add a frame to this text. As you can see, the text components have the same width as the actual image width, and I'm going to do that and actually do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to copy this image size dot width. Actually, that was an error, and I'm going to pass that into this text components width frame. So with that done, there's one last bit that we need to do, and that is right up here inside of our view body. So inside of our view body right here, where we're doing this image, this message text view, and honestly, this should not even be called message text view. This should be called message image view. So I'm going to change this to message image view, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to replace that message image view because it's not a text view. I don't know why I called it a text view. So the next thing I want to do right up here is, let's see, do I want to add a frame to this H stack? So I would like to add a frame to this. We could add a frame to this main H stack, but honestly, we're going to do that in an upcoming episode, and you see why, because eventually we're going to need to add a reactions components to this. And right now, I think everything looks pretty good to me. Let us go right ahead and run our project and see if our images are dynamically sizing themselves. So let's see. The simulator is doing its thing. Okay, let's jump right here to a channel. Let's go to QA user 14. And look at that. Look at that, guys. Look at that. It's dynamically sized. And we can validate this by, let's see. Look at that. You can tell this image size is different. This image size right here, the Swift school, is different from this one, and it's different from this one, and the aspect ratio is perfect. And let us validate that really quickly again by like just sharing another image that's maybe of different sizes. Let's go right ahead, hit that send button. Nice, it clears our text input area. Look at that, image sizes, they're different. You can tell the flower is different from this one, and this one is different from this one. So it's pretty awesome, especially when you have like a full screen image. That's when you're really going to be able to tell when it's actually, different. And we can actually do that really quickly. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to save this on my desktop. Close this, and then I'm going to drag this to my simulator just to prove to you guys that the images are actually dynamically sized. I'm going to go back and pick that images that we just screenshotted, right? I'm going to write, this is awesome. Hit that send button. Let us wait for that image to come through. Look at that. As you can tell, that photo message is way larger than this photo message, for example. So that is awesome. We got the other big part of our agenda for today done. So we're dynamically sizing our messages, especially our photo message. The last bit of the equation that I would like for us to do is to scroll to the bottom once we've successfully hit the send button and, of course, fixed the chat room content insets. And let's see how we want to do that. So for the scroll to the bottom functionality, there's a couple of things that we need to do. Remember, we're using a table view. So we need to be able to communicate when a send button has been hit into our message list controller right here. So we have our chat room view model. When we hit that send button, the actual table view exists inside of our message list controller, and we need to pass that information to this table view so we can scroll to the bottom. And let us go right ahead and do that and create a function that's also going to help us do that. Okay, guys, so before we actually handle the scroll to the bottom functionality, I just realized I made a mistake in the UI window scene logic. So right here, I'm going to jump right back to what is giving us the screen width and screen height. And as you can see, I'm actually using the older method. That was the entire point of me extending the UI window scene. So that was a mistake on my part. And let us go right ahead and fix that really quickly. We actually don't want to access it through the UI screen because, as you can see, the main instance is going to be deprecated pretty soon. As you can see, it says will be deprecated in a future version of iOS. So what I really want to do is actually use this current right here. I want to be able to say UI window scene dot current, right? And it has a screen object on it, as you can see. That is the more modern one. And really what I want is the bounds of that screen, right? Of the screen, and the bounds has a width property, of course. And I'm going to new koalas that to 0 if we're unable to get it, but we will because we're inside of the current scene. And same thing with the height. I'm going to change this from bounds.width to bounds.height. Now let us go ahead and run our project really quickly and make sure that our dynamic screen sizing, our dynamic photo message height is still working as expected. So let's jump right here, go to keyword user 18, and everything seems to be working as expected. So I just wanted to fix that really quickly. I must have, I wasn't thinking about, I totally forgot about the UI window scene routes, and yeah, let's just go right ahead and get right back to business. So inside of our chat room view model, for us to actually handle the scroll to the bottom functionality, we need to create some sort of a tuple that helps us know when to scroll to the bottom and if we want to animate the scrolling to the bottom. So right here, I'm going to create a new tuple, and I'm going to call it, let's see, what's a good name to call this? Scroll to the bottom request. I think that's a good name. So I'm going to come right here, published var, and I'm going to call it scroll to bottom request. And you see why I'm making it a tuple. And it's going to be a tuple that has a scroll boolean, and the scroll is, do you want to scroll to the bottom? And it's also going to have an animate boolean. So I'm going to say, is it animated? And by default, both of them are going to be false. Okay, so we're going to use this scroll to the bottom, publish property to handle our scrolling functionality. And here's what we're going to do. So we're going to jump right into our message list controller and create a listener for that, scroll to bottom request. So I'm going to come down here and create a function just right below our setup method. Actually, we already have one here. We have the setup message listener method, and pretty perfect. I'm just going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to listen for the scroll to bottom request. And what do I want to do? First, I want to debounce just like I'm doing in this messages listener right here. And of course, I want to sync into it. I'm just going to copy this, paste it, just basic combined functionality. And the last bit that I want to do here is, unlike right here, I want to have the scroll to the bottom request. So I'm going to say scroll request. I think that's a good name. Scroll request. I'm going to say if the scroll request dot scroll is true. Remember, this scroll to bottom request publish property is a tuple, right? That has a boolean, and that has, actually, I think it has two booleans, actually. I think both of them are booleans. Yep. So it has a, scroll or its animated property. So I'm saying if it's telling us to scroll to the bottom, right, then I would like for us to do something like, let's see, self.tableview.scroll to last item, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to scroll to the last item, and I'm going to create an extension on table view that's going to allow us to do that. So right now, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. And for us to do that, let's scroll all the way to the bottom of our messages list controller. And let's see, let's create an extension on, let's create a private extension too, honestly, because this extension is only going to be used in this specific file in our project. And so I'm going to create an extension on UI table view. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to have a function called scroll to, let's see, scroll to last row, right? It's exactly what it says. And we're going to give it the scroll position that we wanted to scroll to. So the scroll position is of type UI table view dot scroll position. Yep. And what else? Then we want to pass in the animated Boolean property, because there is a way for you to scroll to the bottom without having to animate. And then we're going to go right ahead and write our logic. So first and foremost, we need to make sure that the number of rows in the section is actually not empty. Essentially, we're going to say the number of sections -1. And what else? We want it to be greater than 0. So making sure it's not empty. We're going to return out of scope if that is the case. If that is not the case, and -1, number of sections -1. And the next thing we want to do is let us get the last section index. Last section index is number of sections -1. And let us get the last row index. Last row index is going to be equals to number of items. Again, number of rows. This is our UI table view delegates methods in section. We're going to say last section index -1. Okay. And then we're going to get the last row index path. We're going to create an index path. So I'm going to say index path. Let's see. There's one that has a row and section. We're going to pass in the last row index, and the section is going to be the last section index. And I think that's mostly what I need. I'm just going to now scroll to, let's see, scroll to item or scroll to row at, and it's going to ask for an index. It's going to be our last row index, and the scroll position is going to be the scroll position that we're passing in as a parameter, and the animated is the animated parameter. So this is a pretty neat extension that you can use in your project if you're working on UI kit, either a UI table view or UI collection view. It's essentially going to allow us to scroll to the last item in a specific UI table view. So let us scroll all the way back to our subscription now, and now let us use this scroll logic. So now all I have to do is self.tableview.scroll to last row at the bottom, and the animated is going to be based on the scroll request dot is animated. Look at how clean that is, right? As opposed to if we have to do all this logic of figuring out how to scroll to the bottom inside of this closure. I think this extension is a pretty dope approach. So let's jump and let's jump back to our chat room view model and actually use our scroll to bottom request to actually scroll to the bottom, right? And how are we going to do that? Well, inside of our function that's responsible for uploading photo messages, where is that bad boy? So right here, we have this to do right here, which is perfect. I would like for us to just fire that scroll to the bottom request. But before we do that, I think I'm just going to create another method down here. And this method is going to specifically be responsible for this scroll to the bottom functionality. So let's see, I want a situation where I could do something like, let's see, scroll to the bottom. I want to be able to scroll to the bottom using a single method, a single signature. And really what I want is, I want to create a scroll to bottom is animated, is going to be Boolean. And I'm just going to say scroll to bottom request dot scroll is equals to true, right? And what do I want? Then I'm going to say scroll to bottom request that is animated is going to be is animated. So that way I don't have to call these two methods. I don't have to write to these two properties individually every time. I could just call it singularly right here. I could just say self, the scroll to the bottom request, is it animated, right? And then we're going to pass in true or false. Let us pass in true for this version. And let us go right ahead and run our project, and let's see what's going to happen. So we should scroll to the bottom whenever we're done sending an actual photo message. Okay, let's go to a chat room. Let us go to QA user 18. Let's manually scroll to the bottom. We're going to handle that as well. Let us click and send a new photo message like this, right? Let's scroll all the way to the top. Let's hit that send button and let's see what happens. Look at that. We scroll all the way to the bottom. But as you can see, there's some inset issues that we need to fix or address right away. And before we even fix the inset issue, the first thing I want us to actually do is to, make sure we use capture list to break this as a weak self, because this send media message is actually a closure, and it's going to hold a strong reference to this property, and we don't want that. So because we are good developers, we're going to do just that. And what else do we want, right? We want to fix this inset issue. And for us to fix the inset issue, we need to go to our message list controller. And let's go into our table view. So I'm in the message list controller. I'm going to scroll all the way to where we're declaring the anonymous closure for our table view, which is right here. And I'm going to pass in the content insets. So table views have this content inset and scroll indicator insets. I'm going to say table view, the content insets. And what is the content inset going to be? Well, it's kind of whatever we want it to be. And in this situation, I don't really want to add any padding to the top. It's really just the bottom that I want to add an inset. So I'm going to add an inset of 60. And I'm going to do the same thing for the scroll content inset. And what I mean is, you see this, this scroll indicator right here. I want that to also be insetted properly. So I'm going to expand Xcode out of the way, copy this content inset, paste it right below, change this to the scroll indicator insets, which is of type UI edge insets. And I believe that should fix our issue. And let's go right ahead, run our project, and that should be it for this episode for the most part. So let's see. Let's go right here into our chat. Let's go right there. Let us select a given message. Oh, first off, before we even select the message, do you see that? Look at that. Our inset is properly working. Like, we have a good inset. Let us send a new message. Let's send Master Yoda and Padme. Go right ahead, hit that send button. Let's see what happens. Look at that. It scrolls all the way to the bottom, right? There's still a couple of issues that we're going to fix in the upcoming episode. But one last final bit before we wrap up this episode is I would also like to add, so for example, the keyboard, I'd like to be able to dismiss the keyboard when you drag it. And for us to do that, I'm just going to go right below the stable view since we're inside of our message list controller. I'm going to say the dismiss mode, the keyboard dismiss mode. Table views have a keyboard dismiss mode. And I'm just going to use on drag. Let's go right ahead, run our project. And that is going to be it for this episode. So I know we handled a bunch of stuff in this episode and probably made this longer than I wanted it to be. But, you know, we're starting to like pick up a lot of these more complex components because in the next episode, we're going to be doing the video uploads. And it makes sense for us to clean up after ourselves. So as you can see, our insets looks pretty good. And if we try the keyboard management, we drag to dismiss, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. And again, let's try to send a message. For example, let us try something like James Bond, right? And let us hit that send button. Look at that. It dismisses our keyboard. It scrolls. It doesn't quite scroll to the bottom yet, but we're going to fix that final bit of scroll to the bottom logic in later episodes. I think this is it for this episode. And in the next coming episode, let us start sending video messages into a channel. So that should be a lot of fun. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.